we look at something as it's not just a transaction, it's a relationship. Like how can we help you? And then how can we help your friends and your family? Because we want to give you, we just blow you away with this unbelievable experience, which can be very stressful.
Hello and welcome to episode 128 of the Smart Agents Podcast. My name is Michael Walter and I'll be your host. In today's episode, we are joined by Mike Panza of Panza Home Group, based just outside of Boston in Newton, Massachusetts. After a 10-year mortgage career, Mike entered the real estate industry and uses his financial experience to educate home buyers and sellers throughout fluctuating markets. Over our conversation, Mike shares how he has built his real estate business, his focus on client education, and his thoughts on the current real estate market. Now, before we get on to the day's featured interview, make sure to subscribe to the Smart Agents Podcast. You can find the show on all major podcasting platforms such as Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and now Amazon Music. Also, if you or someone else on your team has an awesome story or a tip to share with our community, send us a message at feedback@smartagents.com. We're always on the lookout for new stories to share. All right, let's get on to the day's featured interview with Mike Panza. I really enjoyed our conversation, and I hope you do as well. Well, really, the way I like to start everything out is if you could just introduce yourself to us a little bit, who you are and where you're at in the country.
Thanks. My name is Mike Panza. I am a realtor based in the Newton area, which is just outside of Boston. Been in the space here for about 20 years in a few different capacities, 10 plus years in the mortgage business, running my own brokerage, working in license throughout the entire kind of the U.S. And then most recently working as a residential realtor for the Panza Home Group, which is my team here locally, again, based in Newton.
Right. So kind of going back to when you first got into the mortgage space, what was it that, wanted get you kind of going in that direction?
Yeah, honestly, how I ended up in the mortgage space was almost kind of by mistake. I finished school in 2001. I was supposed to jump into the hospitality space, and I had something kind of lined up right before kind of 9/11 happened. Obviously, that curveball went in a different direction, and was looking to get into sales. I've already kind of been in hospitality, worked for different pharmacies and kind of let's say the retail space, kind of like through high school and college. My first job ever was working for my dad's plumbing business. Kind of being self-employed. So consumers and, working with people was always a big thing for me. So just, I think I answered an ad on Monster.com and went pretty well. And I think for me, the biggest thing kind of that got me hooked in that space or in this real estate slash mortgage space was, I remember my first day on the job after being, being licensed and everything else in the mortgage space. I remember my first call to a client was the first kind of loan application or deal that I kind of put together, and was the first transaction that I completed. And what really got me is that it helped that client save some money, help them do some stuff personally with their family, and really kind of changed their life. And we stayed in contact for a number of years thereafter. And it kind of got me hooked, been very, very lucky in this business, but I think just the fact of helping people has been a huge thing.
Yeah, absolutely. So, kind of progressing from there, what was it that made you want to get into the real estate, industry and really kind of go that direction as well?
Yeah, I think the two correlate pretty well. Again, in the mortgage business, I did, work for a number of different organizations, had my own institution as well too. I think the real estate space, so much of it, I think, is really kind of speaks to who I am, and being able to go out with clients, and see where they're going to be living, or show them how to, walk their process of understanding, the pluses and minuses of home ownership. Right. Actually, a little bit of the time kind of in between the mortgage and my being full-time in the real estate space, I founded a nonprofit for first-time home buyer education, along with some certifications around home ownership and so forth. So at that point that was spawned from kind of the crash of 07, 08, 09, right, where I know I was doing my best to educate consumers about, good, bad mortgages, whatever else was going on in the space at the time. But it kind of led me back organically to the real estate space. And it's also, I have to credit my wife and one of my good friends to tell me to, go do this. You're meant for this. You can talk to a wall. People like you. If you don't, just keep talking until they do like you. But I think I provide value, and I think it's something that kind of organically kind of, molded itself, in the over the span of time.
Right. Yeah. So with this nonprofit working with the first time home buyers, I mean, like you said, you remember that first call in your, your mortgage career, having that.
2002. It was like May 30th, 2002.
Yeah. And just remembering like how much that meant to be able to help these people, get this money, but then to be able to do it with homeowners. And, like that's the American dream, getting that first home, and to be able to do that for and educate people. I definitely understand why you're doing what you're doing.
Yeah, I think what I do even now, just before we're jumping out of this onto this session, I reconnected with a client I haven't spoken to about 6 months or a year. They kind of put their search on hold, and it spent 20 minutes, half an hour just educating him, getting him up to date on what's going on. And at one point he actually stopped me. He's like, forgot about how well in tune you are to the space. And for me, it's not to toot my own horn, but it becomes second nature because it's not a job. It's a I love what I do. I love what I do and love how I do it. I think I'm damn good at what I do. So I think I'm just naturally someone just looking to help people. So, and how that translates to this space, it translates very, very well. And I've worked my butt off as well too, which doesn't hurt either.
Yeah. Yeah. So, when it comes to how you're getting, the real estate clients and things like that, has it been a lot of that, through education and kind of that real one-on-one helping people, and then kind of turns into referral type business?
A little bit of that. I think, again, whether it's that education process that's, a friend of a friend or a referral or someone I come across with, I have this really bad sense where my hearing is exceptionally well. My wife has to stop me if we're out at dinner somewhere. I hear someone talking about real estate. I'm not going to say I've gone up to someone randomly and just interjected into the conversation, but I have. And with that being said, I think it's, I love giving my 2 cents, but I think that 2 cents is valuable. And I think also too, I'm pretty lucky that I have a really kind of large sphere around me, my sphere of influence, and, the people, my family, friends, and people that know me, I think, trust me, know me to, make right decisions or steer people in the right way. And I kind of have this saying with some clients that when we kind of go to the process of kind of going through and finding a home and maybe go out look at something, it's somewhat joking and somewhat kind of actually serious, as I won't let anyone buy a home the first time we look at it, the first day out, unless, and it's not my place to tell them what to do. They're adults. They have their own money. They're going to take ownership over that process. But it's something that it just, again, putting checkpoints in place to make sure that I'm doing best to advise them on whatever the right steps are in the process.
Right. Yeah. And that was kind of where I wanted to go next and ask you, with your experience in the mortgage space and experience with the market crash in, 07, 08, 09, having all that experience working with these, first time home buyers, how much obviously you have to be pulling from that experience, but to walk people through even, what the market's like today and what it was, last year, the year before, when it was so hard for people to get into a home.
Yeah, I lean on it constantly. I lean on it actually even more sometimes when I'm helping even the sellers, the listings, because I'm able to help them vet out, the sellers, offers coming in that have financing attached to it. I'm able to kind of help them kind of, basically translate what a mortgage pre-approval looks like versus a pre-qualification versus the more more solid or valuable pre-approvals that maybe have gone through the underwriting process. And the same thing goes with buyers as well too. We just explain to them that, again, you may be pre-approved for this much, but maybe a lender is qualifying you on these things versus that. And in the end, like I'm not that mortgage lender anymore. I just have the experience in that space, and I always defer back to that professional. But I think it's helpful for me, and the clients have found value in it, that if they have a pretty generic, basic question or something more detailed, I at least give them some direction and guidance and some color and context. Well, then they can then go to do the research and get that definitive answer on their own, or lean on me to help them find the answer for them and be their kind of their steward in the process.
Right. Absolutely. I think just having that, almost little guide map of where they should be getting the information from is so helpful. Because I know, like, the first time my wife and I purchased the home, it ended up being like a short sale. We had no idea what was going on. And the whole time we were just so clueless to what was happening. Yeah,
I think and that goes to say I do this every day, and that's why I look at it is, I take a lot of pride in what I do, and I want to make sure that those clients know, whether, again, we're helping them sell a home or buy something, we try to make it as turnkey and really smooth and seamless as possible, because it's not just myself, it's the team of real estate agents I have around me. It's our third-party vendors, the attorneys we work with a ton, the mortgage professionals we work with a ton, the home inspectors, the photography, the photography professionals, on the listing side. Again, this group of people, are great assets. Also, the client makes their decision as to who they work with, but being able to introduce them to multiple people in certain spaces to allow them to contrast and compare who the best person is for their situation is always helpful. In the end, if they end up choosing, one of those people that, is a part of our vendor group list or people that we've done a lot of business with, it makes things easier, because at that point, there's just relationships involved. Everything's relationship based. It's, things go faster, I think, and smoother when it's not vetting out and getting to know kind of how something's going to go, because it's happened so many times previously. We just, like any job or anything just in life, just trying to be proactive versus reactive. And if you try to be 3 steps ahead of the process, and even talk about it with the client and say, hey, our goal is this, but if, this thing happens here, and this is, again, we're going to be worst case scenario, hopefully it doesn't happen, but let's talk about it. So in case it does, we're not on our heels and we're prepared as to how to approach it and then take the next steps thereafter. I think that's kind of the biggest thing.
Right. When you are adding somebody to your group of vendors and your vendor list, how important is it that they share the same values that you do of, really trying to not only just get the job done, but also educate and walk your client through the process as well? It's
paramount. It's like non-negotiable. Like they're not on that list or are part of that group unless they are doing the same thing. I mean, like, they're not the same people. We're not all robots. Everyone does it their own different way and fashion. But I think I learned something when I first dealt with my dad or maybe working in the retail space when I was like in my teens, and the saying's out there, the customer's always right, unless they're like completely unreasonable, but the customer's always right. And it's a matter of like, and it's making sure that customer's comfortable. I mean, it's going to be the biggest investment or biggest purchase someone will make in their entire life, on the buy side. And the sell side, it's the biggest sale you probably will ever make in your entire life when you're selling that home. So we take that very seriously. And the people around us don't have that level of respect for that individual group of people or transaction or engagement, they're not worth our time to work with. It's just not going to happen.
Right, because ultimately that's your reputation of somebody that you've recommended.
100%. And that's really what it comes down to. We stake a lot of claim on kind of like, word of mouth and referrals. And a lot of our business is referrals. And we look at something as, it's not just a transaction, it's a relationship. Like how can we help you? And then how can we help your friends and your family? Because we want to give you, we just blow you away with this unbelievable experience which can be very stressful. But if we are taking a lot of that stress off of your plate by making you prepared, keeping you educated, keeping you informed, and again, kind of being that gatekeeper for you to the best of our ability. Nothing is perfect, but we try to make it as smooth and as seamless every single time through.
Right. Kind of transitioning over to more of, the current market and future market. Tell me, obviously with your experience, not only, not just the length of time you've been in real estate, but also your finance background. Looking forward, what are you seeing in your market that, is coming up?
I mean, I think right now there's a concern. Rates have gone up over the last year, as everyone's fully aware of. There's going to be some fluctuation in those rates this year, but still rates are at all-time lows. Comparatively speaking. I mean, I know that my parents bought their house, and they bought their house 30, 40 years ago. The rate was at 18% or something.
Yeah.
So it's something where it's all relative. I think what we're seeing in the general Boston area is still appreciation and sales values going up. And I think ultimately has to make sense for whatever the client's trying to accomplish. I think that you're going to see additional inventory come onto the market. I think it's going to be still something where it's not going to be as drastic, and the data says this. There are not as many homes to sell or listed in 2023 as there was in 2022 and then 2021 and so forth, but there's still a substantial amount of homes out there for buyers to get into. Buyers are still outnumbering those sellers, but as we kind of go through this process, there's still a wide breadth of the buyers out there are millennial type age, consumers, and a lot of the people who own houses are baby boomers who are looking to downsize and maybe buy out of those houses. Is that all going to happen at the same time where the millennials are going to be buying the house the boomers are selling? No. But there's a mix of that. And I think we're seeing new developments come up as well too, which has helped inventory as well. I think we're going through something's changing as far as, are we in a recession? Is there inflation happening? Yes. Is maybe the recession potentially, I'm not an economist. I'm just someone who just kind of lives in the space every single day. I think the biggest takeaway here I can tell you is just to be prepared as to where it's going to happen. So is it, if you do find a home you're ready to purchase, you're ready to move on it, and if you're ready to sell, have your home ready to hit the market at a very reasonable time frame that's going to be beneficial to you.
Right. It's something you mentioned there. Really kind of two things is, the amount of millennials that are at that, point in their life where they're ready to buy, but we're also, while interest rates are going up, they're still like historic lows. And so being able to get that message across to people that don't know how much, the interest rates could have been, like, is that a really big part of your education process? Like, look, I understand what you're hearing on the news and hearing everywhere else, but this is really what's happening. Yeah.
I mean, that's for us, one of our big initiatives this year is like video. I mean, we're on every social media platform. I haven't been doing any great crazy dance on TikTok, but maybe that's what I'm doing soon. Kind of putting out basic, basic content there, some talking head type stuff. But again, it's a matter of hitting the audience kind of where they're living. Where someone maybe that age demographic is more apt to respond to a text versus a phone call. It's a matter of just getting that out however we possibly can across these different platforms and kind of really become an omni-channel approach. That's really kind of our goal. But yeah, it's, video is huge. The social media platforms is huge. We're putting more focus into getting really good content out there that's going to be relatable and relevant to the audience. And that really depends again on who the audience is. So yeah, that it's if I could, I'd stop, stand on top of my car with a megaphone and just drive around, but I don't want to be obnoxious. Not yet. No, it's not unnecessary at this point.
Right. Well, I really do appreciate you, sharing, everything and the video thing. And, I know that, I'm trying to think now, it was like 10, 12 years ago when my wife and I bought our first home, there really wasn't there weren't the video channels out there that agents were putting things on there, and just to be able to kind of search it and see it, I think it's so beneficial to new home buyers now.
Agreed. Education is key, and good content is good. I mean, it's fantastic. It's just the goal is making sure that you're not, going down some rat hole that's where you're not getting good information. That's always helpful.
I really want to thank Mike for joining us today and sharing his real estate journey and thoughts on the current market. So once again, if you think you or someone else on your team has an incredible story or a tip to share with our community, send us a message at feedback@smartagents.com. We're always on the lookout for new stories to share. Well, that wraps things up for this episode, but remember, follow the show wherever you listen to podcasts and make sure to subscribe to the Smart Agents YouTube channel. Again, I'm Michael Walter, and we'll see you on the next episode.